Hey y'all, happy Wednesday. Welcome back to Tech Backstage. I am joined today by the founder of CustEx.com, Daniel Curran. Daniel, how you doing today?
Great. How are you?
I'm awesome, man. Thanks for asking. It's Wednesday and just cruising through it. I feel like every day goes by faster and faster, but yeah, good, man. Thanks for taking the time to join me today.
Sure.
Excited to talk about the topic. And I think it's with everything that's going on right now in the world, I think it's top of mind for a lot of people. But before we dive into that, would love if you could introduce yourself to the audience, talk a little bit about your background. It's pretty extensive, from all the things I've read, and then talk a little bit about um, how you came to be the founder of CustEx.com, and maybe just give us a little bit of your origin story.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for being here. I've had a background in Silicon Valley. Right now, I'm in Los Angeles, and basically starting as an engineer, became a rocket scientist, had a lot of education, and so on, and worked in industries as an executive in you know building missiles and things like that, and then morphing over to when the internet came out in the 90s. So, just involved with a lot of startups, marketing and sales and so on. And so I've been a founder. I've been an executive. I was an executive of Western Digital. Um, then I've invested in a lot of companies as what's called an angel investor, a super angel, because it's so many companies, over 180 companies. And that's got me number 7 rank on Forbes. I have 22 unicorns out of the 180 that I selected as seed. So that's like where I am. I've been investor, founder, running companies, advising companies, and so on. And where CustEx came from, the idea came from that. It's not really mine. It's just something that I put 2 and 2 together. McKinsey and Company in 2002 started talking about something called co-creation, where customers co-create and design the product with their customers. Unlike the way it's done now, the problem out there by and large, especially with new products, is the data set of the people that are talked to as customers is too small. It's like 100, or maybe it's 10,000 if you're lucky, right?
Right.
But CustEx, what we're doing, both for products and services and for social issues, is we're taking an infinite sample size. So we're saying, why don't we take an infinite sample size? We have the structure of the internet, we have all this data analysis, big data, etc. So I just lazily was forced into starting this, because I didn't want to start it. It's just, I was reading McKinsey and Company, and I'm looking in the articles. What company is doing this? What company is doing this for like 5 years? And so by 2006, that's why I started doing it when I was teaching technology entrepreneurship at UCLA. And so that's how it started out. And our focus was on products, because there isn't a time through the day when I'm not disappointed in a product or service, whether it's software, hardware, whatever. And there is no outlet for that, right? If you call customer service of, whatever, Apple or Samsung, or take your pick, your cable company, they're basically going to put it into the wrong bin. They're going to put it into something called customer service and CRM and Salesforce and all that area. And they've woefully neglected what's called consumer insights and the analysis. So we're basically in the caveman days, before CustEx. So that's what we're doing. So we started doing it in products and services, and now we're just pivoting over. We're going to get back to products and services, but right now, because of the social issues, we have 2 ends that we let spar at our platform, which are the 1% and the 99%. The 1% are the vendors, politicians, and celebrities that control a lot of people's lives, and the other side are the voters, the customers, and the fans. So that's how we're structured. So I see this myself. I've seen thousands of startups. I've invested in hundreds. I know almost everything that's being pitched in the world because I get so many decks every week. And I think this is the most important startup on the planet right now at this time, because we are on the verge, with the coming recession and possible depression, of global civil unrest. And we give a voice for everyone that is not going to just be politely asking to listen like on change.org. We're forcing the 1% to act by a competitive mechanism we have built into the platform.
Okay. Can we just really quick? I want to back up really quick because I want to get a little bit of insight into how you, because jumping from products and services into global civil unrest, I'd love to hear a little bit about just, so you guys started with CPG, which I believe is consumer
Mm-hmm.
packaged goods, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and I love what you said earlier in your introduction about, being upset with products and service companies at least once a day. I feel the same way. Like a lot of times, like I'll be working on something and I'll get an error, or, I'll be at the grocery store and, you'd be standing in line. They just don't have efficient queuing mechanisms or whatever, right? The other thing is I used to work as a technical support manager, and from a behind the scenes perspective, I can 100% relate to what you're saying right now, because a lot of times, just like you're talking about on a customer service side, somebody's going to come in and report a bug, and it goes into kind of this like infinite black hole of
Mm-hmm.
backlog, and they're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh yeah, we'll get to that someday, but it's like it's whatever like the lowest priority is in that ticketing system, it's like 3 levels below that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always it's always the last thing to get looked at, right?
Yeah.
But let's talk before we get into the global civil unrest, because I want to just do a high level overview of how you guys were, like how CustEx works in the CPG and services space, because I think that's going to help translate into talking about how you guys are affecting that change in, at a global level regarding social issues.
Well, today we're not serving the product and services in CPG yet. That is a topic that we're going to have on the lower left of our website. When people go to our website, they're going to see that it looks kind of like TikTok. So its emphasis is on creators and videos and Gen Z. And so what they're going to do is they're going to see celebrities, end racism, climate change, Ukraine, and USA issues, blue and red. And so below that, there's going to be an other button where people can put in anything they want. Then below that, there's going to be one that says products and services. And products and services in CPG, basically what we do is we index everything from Amazon.com and Walmart.com. We're partner resellers of theirs. And someone will be able to go and say they have like an iPhone 11 or something, and they want it to be purple or whatever color they're not making, right? So what they'll do is they'll put what's called a CustEx to improve that product, or they'll put an alternative or a review. We have 3 different sub mechanisms within our platform. So CPG is going to be added, but it won't be for a couple quarters.
Oh, okay.
Because it's not as like interesting to everyone. And see, we want Gen Z, and if you send them to a site where they're asked to improve consumer products, they're going to yawn, right? Whereas if that's why we put celebrities. We put up a silly category. The other categories are serious, and we're just like, they can't not look at celebrity, because it's either actors or athletes or whatever, social media stars and so on. So we've got that part in there. So it's like TikTok, but it's actually useful because we have a purpose. There's everything that people do on the site, there's an end result that we're aiming to happen.
Okay. So what I'd love to do is talk through a little bit. So like I'm on the site right now, and I'm like, for example, I'm looking at Ukraine, and I'm looking at this video right here on Ukraine. Walk me through a little bit. And just for those tuning in, the topic for today is preventing global civil unrest, using technology to force improvements we want in our lives. But Daniel, walk me through a little bit of, so I'm on the site, and I'm looking at this, this video similar to TikTok. Walk me through how, I guess a little bit about how I could use this to start affecting change and forcing the improvements that I want to see, in my life and globally.
Right. Well, there's a few things I need to say. Like right now, the website, depending on when this airs or when someone sees it, CustEx.com, you can come to the site, and we're doing what's called a waiting list launch. So you first will fumble around. You'll kind of see what it's about. You'll see in the lower left, like what is CustEx, what FAQs, all this kind of stuff, right? And then you'll go to the top right and you'll fumble around and you'll see login, sign up, request access. And basically, when you're new, you can only request access, right? So we want you to go through a few screening questions so that we know if you're a good fit with what our platform does, because we don't want like hit and run Twitter or Facebook or other platforms. We don't want those hit and run people that are just going to put something flippant and not be serious about seeing action on it, right? So we're going to let the people in eventually in a couple weeks after we go down the waiting list, and then you'll be able to get in there. You'll be able to log in. You'll be able to sign up, log in, and then you'll go to a video. Say you go to, there's a soccer video right now for celebrities, right? It's just Ronaldo, soccer player, right? So say you want him, I'll just make up something silly, right? Say you don't like him without a beard or something, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to list him in a CustEx to improve something about either himself or what he's doing, right? Maybe someone wants him to support climate change action or something like that, right? But let's just say, okay, we want him to grow a beard. And the way that you get things done that other sites do not do at all, like change.org or other sites like that, is like Move On, is we have you, the creator, create a competition between him and say another soccer player, right? And say, who's going to grow the beard the fastest or whatever, right? So you want to improve something, or it could be, something serious like climate change, where you say, we want you to support, this initiative on climate change and use your celebrity for that and force a competition between him and someone else. That's how you get stuff done. So what I like to say, it took a rocket scientist to figure out how to solve all the problems of the world. And this is a platform to solve all the problems of the world. It's not going to solve them on its own because we don't have an agenda. We are completely neutral, just like the pavement you drive on a road. It doesn't have an opinion. You're just driving on it. We just have the infrastructure. It's like a freeway with guardrails. We only allow positive improvements. We're not interested in negative or complaints. We're only interested in letting people see what are the positive improvements. Because the theory is, if people have a say and they see it's transparent and there's no moderation or anything like that, because we don't allow people to comment back and forth either, then they're going to not riot and have civil unrest if they've seen that, okay, I've had my say at CustEx. I know it's the global ubiquitous platform like Google is for search. And, 80% of the people want something different. So I'm okay with that. I have my say. That's the point. That's the whole drive behind, that theory of preventing global civil unrest. So you go in there, you add either a improvement, which is, that's what we're focusing on. The first is we want to get improvements listed to whatever, it could be a social issue or whatever. And then, you could also put an alternative if it's like, okay, if you don't want to go watch the match with this player, there's another guy with a beard that you could go watch. You could listen to alternative, kind of silly, but that's an alternative. And you could think of this reverberating down to products and services, right? It's like you're in the store, you're in Target, and you're looking at an iPhone 14, but there's a feature that it doesn't have that you just go on CustEx and you're like, oh, but the Samsung does have this, so I'll buy that instead, right? So there's going to be huge amounts of e-commerce ramifications also that we've got built into the system. And then at the end, the thing that people are used to doing in this space just vaguely are what's called reviews, right? So you go to Amazon.com, and I have a lot of startups pitch me all the time that they say, oh, we can mine all this data and scrape it and so on. And I'm like, well, why try to do that after the fact, after the accident's already occurred? Why don't we put up a guardrail and only allow that data to come in structured from the entire world from day one? So that's what we do. Cool.
So I love the example of Ronaldo and the beard. I would like to dig a little bit deeper into that. I'm not going to jump right into Ukraine. I think that's a fairly complex topic right now. Maybe we'll hit that right after this, but I wanted to sit down and talk a little bit about climate change. For example, we had a lady on the show yesterday. Her startups working on green technology right now and sustainability. So I think that's a little bit probably something that's a little bit easier to discuss as far as what you guys are trying to do. But I'm interested to understand a little bit. So, like, let's say we're talking about climate change, and let's say we're talking about it in the United States, for example, right? And so, from what I understand with CustEx, you guys are trying to, like you said with Ronaldo, you're trying to give a couple different options, right? Like you said, maybe the competition is Ronaldo with a beard or Ronaldo without a beard, right?
Mhm.
So when we're talking about climate change, for example, and like let's say we're at a state level, you said you're in California. So like let's say people are trying to affect change in their local government using CustEx. Um, what would that look like? So like let's say I go on CustEx and I know one of the things that's happening in California right now is they're trying to remove the use of gasoline powered vehicles by what is it like 2030, but
Mhm.
at the same time there's like the whole charging infrastructure issue. So they're like, well, yeah, we don't want you to drive gas cars anymore, but you can't plug your car in from 9 to 6 p.m.
Mhm.
So I'm interested to understand a little bit the workflow using CustEx. How does one person, let's say in Los Angeles, affect change through CustEx? Do they go so they are they going on CustEx and they're making these recommendations? Are they trying to engage, like you said, the 1% directly to help drive that engagement, that conversation with local government? How does the CustEx or the CustExes, I think they're called, how do those drive the change with the decision makers or the policy makers with the local governments?
Right. Well, there's several ways, and there's a lot of questions that you just asked.
Sorry.
I'll say first. I'll say first, if this could get across there, we were in the X Prize competition for what's called reemployment, and X Prize is a good example for people that have heard of Elon Musk and so on, right? Um, you know, the way that you get things done, like with X Prize, is they challenge a bunch of companies to solve a certain problem, right? And they say, we'll give you $100 million if you solve this problem,
Right.
and so on, right? So we're borrowing from that a little bit, and basically putting one party against another. So I'm an environmental and civil engineer in addition to mechanical materials and aerospace and so on, right? So I've actually worked in an aerospace company as an environmental and civil engineer and a rocket scientist in different departments. And so I know this more than you would want to hear about this, but there's local agencies, there's state agencies. I used to do like uh, the environmental returns, just like you do a tax return. I did those for local, state, and federal purposes for air, waste, water, all of these different things, right? So environmental, it's across all these different areas. So to give a short answer, if someone wants to come on our website and say there's a local problem, like say they want Santa Monica Beach to not let effluents out when it rains and so on, right? So there's been some work on that, right? So depending on where you're from, Santa Monica a few years ago, they went under the parking lot near the pier and put in a treatment plant that almost nobody knows about. And so the problem isn't much due to that at the pier. It's due to different things like seagulls, but there's other outlets that are further away. So what someone could do in that case is, as a concrete example, right? There's lots of different ways, and we're not limiting the creativity of people. That's why this platform, I see this as this impact will be, I think, larger than Google. It'll be larger than a browser. It's a structural piece of the internet that it should have been there 20 or 30 years ago. And I'm amazed that no one has put it together like this. So it'll allow you, say you have one mayor and you have a challenger and there's a controversy about what to do, whether to use reverse osmosis to get more water for the city's water supply, right? That's the thing. We're drought, we're running out of water, etc. Right? It could be putting, one politician against another. And how does that work on CustEx? Well, what we do is once we accumulate a certain number of likes on a certain CustEx that's originated by one, what we call creator, then people can get they can get rich and famous on CustEx. There's the famous part is, it's like, hey, I created this CustEx, and it's just like on YouTube or something, right? Someone creates a video and it gets this many views. but like, yeah, guys, but what's the result of this, right? Very rarely does something change in the positive direction, right? Where we're laser focused on a change happening. I'm an engineer. I solve problems. I've been trained to solve problems. So, you know, whether there's like, fake news or untruths out there, that's irrelevant. Science is science, and we just give what the science is. And so creators can put up what their suggestion is. And even if they're not geniuses and they're not a creator, we think like 90% of the people on the site, just like on TikTok and on YouTube, they're going to be viewers. They're not going to be contributors, right? Or Wikipedia, right? So we're same kind of thing. We have user generated content, and we let the two parties. So like in this case, we let Mayor One and against the challenger, we let them know by email. We CC them so that they know that we have just shot the gun off at the Olympics and the race has started. So get to change your platform and get action on this. And this could go for vendors of products. It's basically get to market with your product or service, or you're going to lose votes, market share, market cap, and sales. And that gets the attention of the 1%.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's a great point is, the 1%, especially politicians, are, motivated hopefully by, their constituents and the people that are voting for them. And so it sounds like to me, you guys are actually the originators of the change ideas, right? You're not trying to latch on to existing policies or existing, existing, I guess, I guess it's political topics, right? You guys are actually going out and you're sort of crowdfunding these ideas with your user base for them to actually go out and affect change. Like you said, from there, you're trying to get them to gain enough traction among their peers and other people on the network to sort of raise this CustEx to the next level, at which point, like you said, they're getting the exposure, it goes viral, you get the attention of the 1% because you have the traffic and the user base behind the idea, and they're, like you said, they're kind of battling over, which side of the idea is the best way to execute this. And using that, you actually go out and reach out to the 1% and the change makers and get them involved directly like that, correct?
Right. And let me make clear, the analogy I made earlier of we're a freeway with guardrails is that we are just the freeway. If you think like your car is driving on the freeway, you could swear at the pavement or something, and it doesn't really care what you think. It doesn't talk back to you, right? So we're like that. We're just a platform. We're just like a hammer you buy at the store. We are just a tool. We do not have an agenda. We can't be attacked by one side or the other because we don't have an agenda. We basically the only thing that we're doing is we're putting up topics and categories, like I mentioned, that are hot topics of the day, right? Especially with an election coming in the US in the next month, right? So all we do is we put those up, and we're going to have a page in the lower left that includes where we get our data sources and videos. So for example, like the USA issues topic, we get those from the Republican and Democrat National Committee websites. So these are not issues and sub-issues that we make up. They're basically what those parties are putting up, and we're just saying, hey, here's what they are. And so they're gonna sift to the top when someone starts liking, and so there'll be like a subtopic. Say it's like abortion for the red and blue, the USA issues, right? Say that topic goes to the top because it's the most popular over the next few months, right? That is going to go to the top because someone put a CustEx and it was liked the most, and so someone will say, oh yes, that's a good solution, and so on. So we're letting the numbers speak for themselves, and it's going to be transparent to everyone. We're of course going to have lots of data mining capabilities for large corporations, which we already have relationships with the S&P 500, all of the consumer insight and R&D vice presidents. So they will not like using us initially, but once we have the data, like you said, this is something that, in the venture world of my investing, Andrew Chen at A16Z wrote a book called The Cold Start. And it's basically, how do you get a website or a company to go from 0 to some kind of massive product market fit. And this is called the hard side. And the hard side here is getting those CustEx listings.
Right.
It's just like eBay. When eBay started, you wouldn't have buyers come unless there were a lot of sellers listing things. You won't have
Right.
people using Uber unless there were a lot of drivers available for those riders. Because a rider, if he looks and he sees more than a 5-minute wait, then Uber's just failed as a solution. They'll just take something else. Right?
Yeah, it's a tough topic. It's the chicken before the egg argument, and like you said, it's hard because, to get platform adopters, you got to have the traction with the users, but then the users want to know that like you said, what they're doing on the platform is actually going to reach the 1%. Like you said with Uber's case, like drivers without riders are useless and riders without drivers are useless, right? Like neither it doesn't really work. So I'd love to just shift and take the last couple of minutes to talk a little bit more focused on kind of the overall larger picture, right? Which in this case, we're talking about preventing global civil unrest. So with a platform like CustEx, when you guys have the traction, and I know you guys are just starting to do your closed beta release right now. So, but the idea here is that you're talking about basically crowdfunding, or not crowdfunding, crowdsourcing, civil topics, and at a level, again, once the traction's there, at a level that affects global policy making. You want to walk through a little bit about what that looks like for your future roadmap and how you actually see that helping to steer not just countries, but also kind of the global society towards I guess more harmony among people, as opposed to a lot of the unrest and kind of the a lot of the topics that we're seeing today.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of stuff on our roadmap, and it's we're simple in some ways. It's basically, someone will say, "What is CustEx?" It's a site you go to get what you want.
Right.
That you've been oppressed for whatever reason. And you basically go there and you put your vote in. You see it's transparently there, and then CustEx, we do a little juggling there, and we just make people aware. We don't have an agenda. We're gonna take the CustExes that have the most likes, and we're going to make that data available to the two opposing parties, right? So that they get something done, right? So we're just like, it's like a Nike, just do it. We just want people to do stuff. We don't want, people to just talk and not act. And so that's why, we're fully based and focused on that. So, longer term, there's going to be, a lot of positions. The other, area I haven't addressed your audience are the tech audience, right? We are going to be using a lot of machine learning, AI, blockchain, all of these kind of things. And we're hiring engineers and coders from all over the world. And we actually get the easiest ones that want to work mostly for stock options because they're greedy. They want to be rich, is in oppressed countries that have been overthrown, like Egypt, way back, right? And Pakistan, and a lot of these other countries where there's corruption and there isn't a voice and so on, right? And so we welcome to hear from those people. My contact information is going to be there. Check out, look at what the platform does, and we look forward to admitting in the people from the wait list that are what we call our super lead users, that are going to be serious about getting something done, because I've been looking for this for years. I'm a lazy person. I didn't want to start this company. It's basically just, I don't know why I see this and no one else does. It's just basically, hey, why isn't there a platform? Ask yourself, why isn't there a platform where you could just put in a registry, like a global voting machine that can't be hacked, that, doesn't have an agenda, that you can get what you want? I mean, doesn't this seem obvious? This is just like, we have this silly browser and we have this silly search engine, but, and we have these silly sites that are wasting so much time. I won't name any of them. Some of them I talked about earlier. Really, they're not getting anything done, and people feel bad when they leave them. Our site, when you leave it, you're going to be excited to come the next day And you're going to get all kinds of messages like from us, oh, if you're the creator, your CustEx has this many likes and it's growing, and all that stuff to answer your question. We're going to have all that kind of interactivity. But I know as a startup investor and founder before, with the MVP version, the minimal viable product, we have to put something that is very focused and simple for people to understand. And so we're not even putting in like an email function or a communication function. We're not interested in competing with like Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. We're not one person sniping at another that are not part of the 1%. That's not going to get anything done, right? So we're going after what really gets stuff done.
Very cool. Well, Daniel, we are at time, but I appreciate you sitting down and taking the time to talk to us about CustEx and your guys' vision and where you guys are headed. Before we take off, Carlos, do you got any more announcements for the rest of the week?
Yes, Eddie, thank you. We have 2 more shows. Tomorrow's show is going to be a special edition, and it'll be with our very own Omar Soto at the development. And then finally on Friday, we're going to be talking to Jonathan Curran, at QCR Holdings. That's what we have for the remaining of this week. And it'll all be at 12 o'clock noon Pacific time. So join us here and be here or be square. Thank you.
Thanks, Carlos. And Daniel, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.